I'll be talking about some tactical safety. I'll be talking about some technical training, and we're going to talk about some psychological safety. And what I do is I weave all that together, kind of like three-phase power. And I'll change it up. We'll start on some A phase, and then I'll go to B. Yeah, you may want to get a seat because this is 2 hours. And then I'll talk about some C phase, okay? So I'll talk about all three subject matters and just weave them in through, okay? So we're all powered up. Anyways, my name is Brent Jeffries, Bierer Meters. I'm Vice President of Field Operations. I've been with Bierer Meters 9 years now, and I travel around the country for the last 7 years. What you guys are getting, lineman safety and tool training. That's what this is called, you're getting it. And I started 7 years ago. So I said, hey, we're gonna do this for free, and we're not gonna charge nothing, our profits are good, and we're gonna start giving back to the industry. And if our customers like it, if the industry accepts it and wants more, then I'll just keep continuing doing it. So it's been evolving, it's been a neat. If you go to Bierer Meters tool training on our YouTube, if you go to Bierer Meters safety training on our YouTube, we have a Bierer Meters YouTube channel. We have a lot of videos that you guys can download, you guys can use. If you're unfamiliar with the product, my brother does a great job, Joe Bierer, he does a great job. And he goes through all the tools, all the videos, and then we got a lot of safety videos. Next month, we have Mr. Jimmy Vaughn coming out with Institute for Safety and Powerline Construction. And then also we have Mr. Lito Wilkins coming out as well. So we're not only doing one a month, we're doing two. And you guys can register, you guys can receive all these webinars. Just contact me, this is how you contact me, and I can send you every one of them free. Once you're registered, you get all of them free. And this is going nationwide, actually North American wide. And what we're doing is we're bringing the utilities together. It's not about being union, it's not about being non-union, it's not about being a municipality or a cooperative or investor-owned or a contractor. It's not about this. What we're doing is we're bringing everybody together as a family, as a line team, I like to call it. This has never been done, and it's happening. It's only been 14 months, and this is the real deal. You'll see right here, our logos that we have of endorsement. We just picked up, it's not on here yet, but our new one, the new flyer that's coming out any day now does have. We just picked up Austin Energy, they're endorsing it. We just picked up Indiana Electric Cooperatives. Mr. Dwight, he's the one that sent me a year ago your all's logo for Ohio's Electric Cooperatives, and your logo's on here, and it's been on there for 12 months now, okay? So this is real, it's not gonna go away, and it's awesome what's going on. So, and there's no cost. Just like us being here, we don't charge a penny. We spend about $1 million a year in our profits doing lineman safety and tool training across the country. No one pays nothing. A few years later, he came out with a grounds tester that puts continuous current on the full assembly, 37 years ago. Now Walter, my dad, he's got 17 patents, so we have more patents than all of our competitors combined. So we're a family company, my brother, his wife, my nephew, my sister just retired after 20-something years there. So we got aunts, uncles, so we're a family company. Everything you see here, we build from scratch in the United States of America, South Carolina, okay? So we're a very unique company. We also make grounds. We have our own elbow molds. We have our own clamp molds. They're smooth metal molds, not the sand cast. So our clamps are actually about 15 to 30% stronger than everybody else's. Can you believe that? We have our own cable, our own ferrules. We got everything as far as temporary protective grounds. We can make clusters. We got jumpers. We got everything. Our prices are excellent because there's no middleman. So just get a hold of Colin, get a hold of us, and then you guys can make a custom order, get some pricing. Anyways, we got a lot of products, but this is going to be about the safety training. That's what this is focused on, okay? And the grounds tester, what we have here is we got OSHA regs. We got 1910 269, and 1910.269, these are lineman scriptures. These are the scriptures for linemen. These regs were written because somebody got hurt, somebody got killed, somebody spilled blood. So these are really important. These rules are very important. These rules are to be considered a baseline, a foundation. And then what Ohio's Electric Cooperatives, what you all do, is you take the baseline and then you customize, you add to it, you enhance your safety program to expound and be better than even this. And we're going to talk about some things that I think should be changed in here today, all right? And you'll agree. You'll agree because we're going to prove it. We're going to talk about your magnetic reality. We're going to spend a lot of time on your electrical reality. You're going to see things and hear things you've never seen or heard before, but it is not an electrical theory at all. It's your electrical reality. It always has been. Maybe we just didn't know. So I like to train, when we go over this, I like to train that knowledge plus understanding. You guys have a lot of knowledge. If you've been in line work for over 10 years, which most of you, I think every one of you pretty much has, you are considered to have a PhD in line work. Okay? You do. You have a PhD in line work, and you guys need to understand that every one of you that has a PhD in line work, that you are geniuses. You are. You're flat geniuses, and you're gifted. And you need to know that, you need to believe that, and understand that. That's a fact. IQ test is based on knowledge that man has taught you. That's what IQ tests are based on. If you do a true test as far as hard work, as far as understanding life, the real life, because a lot of college is not even real life, you would be surprised how much you guys would perform way over that these folks that they call geniuses with 200, 240 plus, okay? You guys would outscore them. You guys are geniuses, and you have PhDs in line work. You need to understand that. And you need to let your men know that, and your ladies. And I saw a line lady at one of the stops near the Amish town just the other day. One of the contractors has a line lady, ground lady, okay? She was upbeat. It was cool. All right, so we're going to talk about lowercase n. Lowercase n is all about your temporary protective grounds. Lowercase n. That is good to let your guys go over that once in a while. Maybe it's raining outside, do a little addition to some of your safety talks and actually open up the OSHA regs. That's good. Just open them up sometimes. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to open it up a little bit. So lowercase n talks about your TPGs. If you go down to number 4, lowercase n, and you go to triple lowercase I. Triple lowercase I, it talks about how the ASTM F855 and the IEEE 1048 are guidelines. So the guidelines are included into the regs, the rules. They're guidelines. So if you look at those guidelines, you'll see that your folks are to visually inspect your TPGs. And we're going to talk about visually inspection prior to use and mechanical inspection prior to use. After doing this for 7 years, I have been to large utilities, small munis. I've been to places that, in between. It don't matter if it's a contractor or anything, where they were not training their linemen ever had in their history. Think about it. In their history, they never had trained their linemen to visually inspect. Just look at them, your TPGs. Never. Nor mechanically inspect. And when I go over this, it's amazing the looks on their face, because I see jaws drop. You can hear the earth shake a little bit when their jaw hits, okay? Especially after eating all that food, all right? Just like boom, it's like, whoa, Or they're just like, we never heard this before. So we need to visually inspect. It is super important. Your TPGs are to be considered. We're going to talk about 2 best friends. This is one of your best friends, is right here, okay? Can you all hear me back there? Okay, I'm trying. You don't want to see any bubble jacket. I've never seen bubble jacket where it got too hot. You don't want to see that. You don't want to see any blackened copper, if you can see your copper. You don't want to see any broken strands, patinaed copper, nor oxidization on your components, especially your contact points. You don't want to see any cracks in your clamps or obviously loose components, smashed cable, or cable that's pinched. You don't want to see none of that. And again, I've been to coast, and I've seen assemblies that are coming off the line trucks because they never were visually inspected. They're shocked. They say, hey, tell me what you think about these. And I look at them and I say, those will fail. Those will fail because you're supposed to also perform an electrical test on your TPGs from time to time. And you can visually inspect, and if they're so bad and so crappy that you can tell that they're going to fail electrical test, that means that if a potential fault current hit the TPG assembly, that assembly that was supposed to protect them with their lives would actually fail them and they would be dead. This is a true story. Also, mechanical inspection. You want to grab a hold of your clamps, grab a hold of your assembly, and you want to make sure you cannot twist that ferrule or pull, or that ferrule's, maybe you got a plug ferrule, it's fitting inside a couple of clamps. You want to make sure that's tight in those clamps, and you make sure that it's tight in the threads, either one. And you also want to make sure when you try to wiggle that cable cable does not wiggle inside the ferrule, that the crimps are very tight and snug. If your TPGs passes the visual test, typically they're going to perform well for you. You also want to make sure you have a date stamp for when they were last inspected. You could have a crew that's working outage, working some storms, maybe in another state, and your schedule for the testing period, they could get skipped. So they need to make sure that their date stamp is in line with your protocol, okay? We recommend 12 months. Unfortunately, the guidelines do not say how often. That makes no sense to me. I know companies to this day, one very large one actually, maybe one of the largest, that they do not, to this day, electrically test their TPGs for their linemen at all, okay? And we actually brought some of those off the truck. We put electrical tests and half of them failed. The reason why half of them failed, nominally, but they didn't pass. And the reason why is simply they look good, and we simply grabbed a hold of that clamp and the clamps would spin right off because they were never taught that the clamp had to be tight and snug. Think about that. That's kind of like 101 TPG. Huh? That's a class you all start. TPG 101. Okay. Got that, Dwight? Okay. All right. So what we're going to do is now we're going to perform an electrical test. Some of you guys aren't going to be able to see that. We got your backs to the sun. Figured you could have a better view if my face was in the sun and not yours. So this is actually a planned event right now. Okay. We always plan ahead of time, right? All right, so I'll shade this. So what we have here is we've got an amp meter at the bottom, and we have a voltage drop meter at the top. And we're going to go ahead, number 2 cable requires 165 amps. We're going to put 165 amps on this cable. Notice how we have it in a parallel configuration. The reason why is because we're mitigating a magnetic field that would come and be created if we had this in a coiled configuration, like so. We don't want a coiled configuration. When you use your TPGs out in the field, you never want to see or have your linemen understand that they can get away with this. This is very dangerous. This causes a magnetic field. If this set got hit by a potential fault current, that magnetic field would try to escape. The cable would try to escape from itself. And if the lineman's in the way, you could have injury or even death. All right? So if the cables are too long, just buy a shorter assembly. If you got to do this, just buy a shorter assembly. It's real simple. So you don't want to do this. You're going to go from point A to point B when you're set up your equipotential zone, and a little droopage is fine when point A to point B, but you don't want coils. You don't want it hanging up in the air with electrical tape all coiled up. You don't want them on your truck grounds all coiled up either. If you got a truck reel, take those grounds and reel it all the way out and lay it on the ground and run that cable side by side each other. That's all. Not coiled. Don't leave them on the truck ground or the truck reel. All right? So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and do the test. We're going to simulate going from point A to point B. So we'll mitigate the magnetic field. And we've got a magnet here. And we simply, you can see it's quiet. No hum, real quiet. And well, that's because there's no load. Works pretty good. Let me do this first. Let's do the test first. All right, so we got 165 amps and we got a 0.225 voltage drop. We'll call it a 0.23. The chart says a 0.24 or less, it passes, this passes. We're out here in the sun, so it's a little higher than it should be because it's warmer than it should be, but it still passes. You want to be in a shady area and do your test not in the sun. Okay? So it passes, it's good. We're going to go to 300 amps, and I can feel that current in my hand through the cable. It feels kind of cool. So here we go. We've got a magnet, and as we come, you can hear that hum. There's just a little hum, little bounce, just a little bit, but it's calm. All right, it's calm. Now what we're going to do is we're going to actually create a coil, create a magnetic field that you don't want to see. Right here, 300 amps. Here we go. Okay, that's a magnetic reality. You don't want to see that. That's dangerous. Okay, so also what I like to share with you guys, when you guys work with each other, deal with each other, when you come into that room, when you speak to one another, you go home to see your wife or your husband or whoever, your kids, don't come into that place all coiled up. You see that? You get that? Don't do that. Okay, because that causes crap. That's dangerous. You want to just be smooth and you want to be in parallel with one another, huh? Point A to point B right here, mind to mind, and just be smooth. Okay? All right. Any questions? Good? You guys can ask questions. This is open forum, by the way. I might have not mentioned that.
You have to factor in the length of your cable.
Yeah, so good question. So this chart right here that Walter came up with, if the cable is longer or shorter, whatever, the length of the cable does give you the proper reading regarding per the length. Yes, 100%. Walter came up with this chart, the math. He came up with this when he built this tool. And check it out, ASTM F855, the guidelines, this for your OSHA regs, they took his math. They took his chart. And if you go to page 2 of those guidelines, table 1, that's his math. They took it. And the reason why they took it, because it's really good and he's really smart. This is by Don Merrill, and he wrote this years ago, and it's called I Chose to Look the Other Way. And this is many years ago. And after doing this for 7 years, you know, I'm hanging out with a lot of safety professionals in the industry. And because of electric culture of safety, I have a lot of contacts. So I get told a lot of things confidentially that is just amazing. So I hear everything that's going on through the country. When there's an incident, I hear this firsthand. And it's amazing what's going on. This here was written years ago, and it's like it was written yesterday. Okay? Why? Because nothing's changed. So let's read this. It says, I could have saved a life that day, but I chose to look the other way. It wasn't that I didn't care. I had the time and I was there. But I didn't want to seem a fool or argue over a safety rule. I knew he'd done the job before. If I spoke up, he might get sore. The chances didn't seem that bad. I'd done the same. He knew I had. So I shook my head and walked by. He knew the risks as well as I. He took the chance. I closed an eye, and with that act, I let him die. I could have saved a life that day, but I chose to look the other way. Now every time I see his wife, I know I should have saved his life. That guilt is something I must bear, but isn't something you need to share. If you see a risk that others take that puts their health or life at stake, the question asked or thing you say could help them live another day. How many incidences have I heard since December Almost a lineman a week have lost their life. True story. I did training at SCE in California in, gosh, I don't remember, in February. And it's like, I got there, it was actually twice. I did one in late January, then middle of February. Anyways, I got there and did training about 2 weeks after one of their guys got killed. And it's like, I got to start reading this poem because we're not getting it. And I'm in front of these guys, they just lost a lineman. You know how hard it is to do safety training in front of folks like that? It's hard, you know, because they're still grieving. You guys are still grieving, you know? You are, and it's horrible. It's hard. But if you read that, if you listen to the words of that poem, I want to ask you guys something. Let's be honest. What has changed since Don Merrill wrote that poem? What has changed between then and between where we're at now here? What has changed? How many apprentices are getting on a pole and you got a foreman on the ground, or vice versa? And the apprentice, he's on the ground, he's too afraid to say something because he's going to get lipped. He's going to get yelled at, cussed at, because he was the week before. He sees something sketchy that's going on right next to his shoulder, the journeyman's shoulder, his foreman's shoulder. And he doesn't want to say nothing because he just got yelled at. You see what happens? This culture, this electric culture of safety is all right here. That's all it is. That's all it is. And nothing's changed because we're not changing. We've got to change. This pattern will continue down this road. If you study behavioral performance and how we, 15, 20 years ago, we started getting into behavioral performance, and those small incidents did drop. They did. The big catastrophes, the loss of life, the fatalities have exactly stayed the same. They have not dropped at all. So the performance-based behavioral type safety trainings will not work. It will not work because it's been proven for stopping the fatalities. Because if you read this poem, it's like it still is the same, it just was written today. The pattern's the same, the message is the same. And the message that we give is what we do, is how we act. We talk about safety at the training center. We read the rules, we follow the rules, but then when we get out there in the rural area, which you guys have a lot of, you get out there in the rural area, you've got a foreman that you know is going to get the job done. So you give the paperwork to them, but you've got another crew that's a little slower, that's always sitting in front at the safety meetings. They're not in the back with the hat over their eyes on the text messaging. You got a crew that's a little safer. They're in the front row, they're learning, and they do things exactly like they did in the safety training out in the field. No one's watching, they do it anyways. So instead of giving the job to them, you got to get her done, you give it to the crew that's going to get her done, but not to the crew that's going to work safely. Okay? And that's got to stop. If a crew that cannot work safely, then the leadership must change here. This is what has to change with the leadership. And everybody has to work exactly the same. Everybody works safely. All right? We just go a little slower and just get her done, but we don't say get her done. That get her done has got to stop from our vocabulary. We need to start saying things like, check this out, you have my permission to work safely. You hand them the work order, they get in the truck, and they have that in their mind. Don't say you have my permission to work safely, but it needs to be done today. Huh, Brandon? You know. White? Huh? You know. You have my permission to work safely, but it needs to be done today? No. You have my permission to work safely, and you and your crew know that it's going to get done when it gets done. Might not get done today, and that's okay. Okay, so they lose a few, thawed out hamburger meat. Who cares? Your linemen come back alive. Thawed out rotten hamburger meat is of no value compared to a lineman's life. Do you all agree? Let that chicken that's in there, let the chicken go sour and turn green. As long as your linemen come back alive, who gives a crap? That's where we need to focus, okay? Any questions? Good? Okay, let's continue on. See, we're getting different phases, A, B, and C. All right, that's some psychological. Now we're going to go in some tactical safety. The tactical safety is horn and light. If you all use a horn and light, whether it's our tool or anybody's tools, none of that matters. The safety is exactly the same. Whether it's a corded tool, whether it's a wireless tool, the safety is exactly the same through any manufacturer. Horn and light, battery test. You always perform a battery test. You're going to see and hear. If you do not see and hear, then what you're going to do is you're going to take a known good working battery and you're going to simply take off the quick change, tap out the 9-volt battery, put a known good working battery in it. If you still don't see and hear, the tool's broken. Send it in for repair. We built the tool. 20 years from now, if your tool's broken, we can fix the tool because we built the tool, okay? So when you get one of our tools, it's basically a lifer. When somebody retires, that tool is handed to the next guy. It's kind of cool that way. All right. Analog, battery test, anybody's tool. You want to see that needle deflect all the way. If it's partial or it doesn't deflect, change the battery. If it's still partial or doesn't deflect, send the tool in. Tag it, it's broke. Okay. I don't like analogs. I don't like horn and lights that much. Horn and lights, they're not that super accurate. They give you some information. It's better than hauling a wrench near that line or a screwdriver. Horn and light, okay? Analogs, better than that, gives you a little more information, but they have moving springs, levers, and things like that. If you drop these a few times, they need to be calibrated probably because they lose calibration and maybe some of the parts inside need to be replaced. Don't know. So they're not as robust. They're still tough. We tested our tools, our engineering department, we tested these housings right here by running it over with a half-ton truck, okay? And they're still fine. So they're pretty robust. You try another manufacturer's tool, run it over with a half-ton truck, you're buying a new tool, okay? All right, digital. I like digitals best. The reason why I like them best is because digitals give you the very most accurate information available. They give you more information and they're more accurate. So I like digital and they're robust. They don't have moving parts. So the battery test it gives you more information. Here's proof number 1 is it'll give you the battery voltage. 8.1, you guys see that flash? Okay, battery voltage. Okay, so more information. You know how good that battery is. If it goes down to 7 volts, 7.2, replace it. Our operating instructions say 8 volts. I'd go to 7. Use it a little longer, okay? I suggest lithium. They last a little longer. They're more expensive, but the life you get out of them, it outweighs the expense. Plus, when it gets super cold here in Ohio, if it's like 0 degrees, okay, which in South Carolina, we don't know what that means. If it's 0 degrees, the alkaline can freeze. The lithium will not, okay? So I suggest lithium. All right, get this out of the sunlight. Let's see, what else? Okay, so care. What you want to do is when you use your tools, make sure that the probes are clean on everybody's tools, including ours. That will mitigate outside flashover or tracking. Inside, what we did is we put epoxy in our tools. You have resistors here, and we bake it, and the epoxy keeps the external elements from getting inside the probe, which would cause an internal track. I mean, you get a hacksaw, cut this probe in half and somebody else's, and you'll see their wires are flopping around inside the housing or inside the probe, okay? We do a good job. We are a family company. We can put more resources in our products, so we can do that. We don't have to put money in stockholders' pockets, okay? That's why we can do this for free, all right? You'll always need to remember, so hot stick wipes. Take care of your, no markings, no calibration stickers. I've seen all that on the probes, don't want that. Hot stick wipes work great. Keep it clean. this line limit was put on these back in 2009. ASTM says you got to put a line limit, and that line limit right here is about 2.5 inches down from the cone tip, and that's to remind your linemen, okay, this is important, that's to remind your linemen that are using these products, anybody's tools, that the resistors are right there. That's where the resistors are. The resistors help protect the tool from primary voltage, all right? And ultimately help protect the lineman, which is working behind the tool on their hot stick, okay? So that's important to always share with one another, share with your linemen as far as the safety that's inside, okay? So what you guys are gonna do is you're gonna speak to them and you're gonna always remind them that they need to create at that line limit a sphere that goes around. So you wanna create a sphere, okay, around the tool from that line limit, around the sides, around the back, the front, and over the top and underneath. And in that sphere, you're gonna call that your air dielectric. That's your second best friend. We're gonna talk a lot about her. She's a very good friend. And you always wanna take care of your good friends. You wanna take care of this best friend and the air dielectric, your other best friend. Always take care of her and she'll take care of you. She'll not let you down, okay? So if you're using these tools ever and you have a ground plane nearby, or you might have another hot phase, maybe you're in a substation, you're gonna make contact with a hot phase and you got a hot bus nearby, you don't wanna use the tool in that position, in that scenario, because you can experience a flashover. That has happened, we've gotten that call. You don't wanna be in a tight vault. You don't want to be using it. You got 3 phases or 1 phase, and you got a tight cabinet, and you got bleed wires right near the meter head. All right, you don't want to use that in that scenario because you could have an arc flash. Okay, and now you know why, because this is how the tools work. So we're going to talk about an equation that is super important, and you all need to always keep this equation here, and you're going to use it in your line work with your guys. And this is an equation that you always need to share from now on until you leave, all right? This equation is x plus y equals z. This math is completely useful, and it's x plus y equals z. And the x is the conductor, all right? Whether it's energized or de-energized, x is the conductor. Y, you always need to know why. Brandon does a great job on, if you guys want his training that he did on why, the most important question, that video he did, man, just email me, email him, you guys can get it. There's no cost. It's a good video to share with your crews. Anyways, the why is how the tool functions. You need to know how the tools, your linemen need to know how their tools functions, whoever's it is. And this is how they function. It's very simple. What they do when they make contact with the conductor, the tool couples with the capacitance from the conductor, regardless of the name of the conductor, and it looks at the current. The tools look at the current right here in relation to the ground plane. That's how they're designed. Ground plane, okay? That's how they're designed. If they're wireless. If they're corded, they do the exact same thing, but instead of looking at the ground plane through the air, they look at the ground plane through the cord. Very simple. Meter, secondary probe on the ground plane. Very simple. Through the cord. All right. So if that's the case, if that's the why behind the tool, then that means that your tools, regardless of manufacturer, that means your tools are energized, correct? Does that mean that? They're energized, right? There's resistors here. So what it is the resistors keep the tool from having the full impact of that primary power, but the tool must have a chunk of it, a percentage of it, in order to give you a voltage indication. So it's got to be energized. Everybody's tools, okay? You guys use, I know a lot of cooperatives here use non-contact tools. When that non-contact tool goes off, is that tool energized in order to go off? Yes or no? Is it? Huh? Flat out, yeah. It has to be. The components inside that make your tools and our tools work, the components, they are conductors. They have to be conductors in order to look at current. How are they going to look at the current and give you a voltage indicator if those components are not conductive? They are. So the tool's energized. You guys get that? That's the why. The equals Z. This is super important. Typically, the linemen are handed new tools, new phasing tools, corded or wireless or whatever, testers, and they're handed these tools and they're not told the why. They don't even know the Z. And the Z has always equaled, ready? The Z equals safety. Not, you don't talk about, oh, are we in phase or, no. Are we safe first? Are we working safely first? That's the first thing you must consider, the lineman must consider when they're looking at that indication of some sort. Safety and accurate information gathering. Because a lot of guys, they don't understand the safety, they don't know the why behind the tool, and they're using these tools, and they're getting information. You know, it looks like we should be in phase. We should be. Is there induction on the line? I don't know. We're on this underbuild, maybe not. Okay? Because you have a non-contact tool, so you're not going to know the truth all the time with a non-contact tool, believe it or not. You get a lot of false positives, a lot of false negatives. That's what they're all about. They're like a horn and light, not too accurate. All right, so what we're going to do is, that's a Z, equals safety and accurate information gathering. Any questions thus far? Y'all good? Good? Everybody? The train agrees. The train's going, yes. See, right there. All right, what we got here is whenever you're using the tools, your guys are using the tools, gals out in the field, you want to make sure, because you know how these tools work, you want to make sure that they are behind the meter head. And we recommend 36 inches. If you want to denote the 36 inches by using an electrical tape, a hand guard, that's fine. But you want to be 36 inches back from the meter head. Remember we talked about the air dielectric? Best friend, you want to keep your best friend. Because the equation, x plus y equals z, when you keep that air dielectric, this is how you get safety and accurate information gathering. If you've got folks that are used to using their tools, choking up on their stick, short sticking, choking up, the equation is no longer x plus y equals z. The equation is x plus y plus the line person, line worker, equals no safety nor accurate information gathering when you short stick. Never has been safe, never will be safe, and you won't get accurate information gathering. You'll get something, and if you do it enough, one day they may get something that they won't like because it's unsafe. All right, another thing folks don't understand with their tools, some guys like to go ahead and use their gloves and they'll tool glove, what we call tool gloving. All right, one, if you're a lineman, this is a bad, horrible nickname to have as a lineman, tool glover, okay? Don't want that nickname. Plus, it's x plus y plus u. This has never been safe and it's never been accurate information gathering right here. It ain't gonna work. This has gotta stop. But the guy, about 25-year journeyman lineman, he came up to me afterwards. He told me an incident that took place with him personally that he had never shared with anybody on his team. Never shared. You know why he couldn't share it? Nobody else knew about it except me. Okay? The why he couldn't share it is because their electric culture of safety wouldn't allow it. Their culture of safety wouldn't allow anybody to share an incident that took place, a near miss that took place, because they get reprimanded. They might lose their pay. They might lose a position in their job. They'll be mocked, made fun of. Okay? True story. They got too much pride. You know, pride kills people. Y'all know that? Y'all read that, hear that poem? You don't think there was pride in that poem? Self. It's about self. Self-protectionism. And he wouldn't share. He came to me and said, hey, man, I appreciate the training. I got to tell you what happened. I've been tool gloving all my life on capacitive test points. But one day, this one day, I did it a little different. I had no gloves. And I took my meter, went to the capacitive test point to get that reading. What do you think he told me happened? What do you think happened? Yeah, he got hit. He got hit with some potential. Yeah, it wasn't full potential. It was what, 10% of the nominal voltage on the capacitive test point, plus we have resistors here. So that breaks that down a little bit. But still, it scared the crap out of him. He didn't know that the tools were energized. No one, this large company, never taught their linemen that their tools are energized when you use them. Never. They didn't know. Can you imagine that? So knowledge plus understanding equals safety. He never had that knowledge. He never knew the why behind how these tools work, and he got popped, okay? But fortunately for him, he was able to share that story. A lot of guys get popped, they can't share the story no more. You guys know what happens. Somebody gets hurt, you have a fatality. You guys know well and very dear what happens. You guys have all these flags hanging and booms coming together, and you got this procession happening. You know what that is? That's called learned helplessness. That's training learned helplessness. Instead of training for the event so that the event would never happen, we trained for the fatality. Think about that. Why not put all those resources? Why not put all that work and time, all that stuff into culture of safety? Why not? That way our guys, our people, they go home, they retire from the cooperatives. They're happy, and we enjoy each other's, we hear each other's stories. We hear about our kids. That's what we need to do. We hear about marriages, huh, Harrison? Huh? Yep. Yeah, and then you're gonna have some kids, all right? I hope, okay? So that's what we need to hear, and that costs money. But so does learn helplessness, bringing the boom trucks together, dropping down some flags. That costs money too. And now we got kids, well, I don't know if there's children. Now we got kids without their dads. We got wives without their husbands. Huh? That's it. You can't turn back. But safety, we can turn all this back. That poem, we could take that poem and wrinkle that thing up on a piece of paper and light it on fire and let that thing go. And we are done living like that. We can if we wanted to. We could. All right? I was at Trico Electric Cooperative in Marana out of Tucson, making my way toward California in January. And it was, you know, southern Texas, did some encore going out to San Diego Gas and Electric in January. It's a little cold, but it's still pretty. Arizona desert, right? So I get to Marana and Trico, and Jim Dugan, Jim Dungan, he said, Brent, wait, before you get started, we're gonna have a 15-minute tailboard. And I'm like, oh, that's cool, man. I wanna see these guys, and I'm thinking, I wanna see this, because I'm picky, and I wanna see some good stuff. And if I don't see good stuff, I'll say something. And I tell you what, that was a treat. I was blessed. And what they did is they took 15 minutes out and they opened the floor. They opened the floor to allow anybody to talk about a near miss or an incident that took place freely and openly. There was no embarrassment. Nobody gets dinged. Nobody, oh man, I'm gonna dock your pay for that, or I'm never gonna let you be this position, ever. No threats, there's none of that. And they shared openly 2 incidences that did take place over the last week. And that was awesome. And you know what happens when you share a near miss, when you share an incident to a fellow lineman, to your brothers, to your sisters? What happens at that point is you mitigate that same incident, that same near miss to ever happen again. Because now they have the knowledge. Now they have the understanding. Now they have safety. It's a culture. So we got to share openly. It's got to be allowed. Okay? We've got to. There's no other, or that poem is just going to keep being repeated. Huh? It's just going to keep, like it was written yesterday. Yesterday is the same today. Okay, so what we have here is we got a VD1000P. The P is for proximity. So we can use this tool in proximity to approach, maybe to approach that 3-phase overhead line right there. That's what that is, okay? To approach these pad mount here with capacitive test points. Maybe you have a few capacitive test a few elbows without capacitive test points. That's fine. This will still sniff it out. So what we're doing is we're going to engage in our work. We're going to verify if we're hot or not without making direct contact initially. All right, just to keep what? Situational awareness, right? Situational awareness. So we're going to put the tool in the P setting. It's got a URD, so it's underground. Underground goes to 99.9 kV. It starts working accurate at 1,000 volts. If you're on capacitive test points, it's not accurate, but it'll still let you know if it's energized or not. All right? If you go to OH, OH is overhead. It goes to 99.9 kV. You're telling the tool you're further from the ground plane. Underground, you're telling the tool, you guys get that? You're telling the tool that you're close to the ground plane. No other manufacturer does that. No other manufacturer discriminates between close to the ground plane or far from the ground plane. We do because we know how these tools function. So they're more accurate for you in those situations. So what we're going to do is we're going to approach, and we got OHT overhead transmission. You guys will probably not use that too often, maybe in a substation. All right, so what we're going to do is put it in the P setting, and we're going to approach this overhead line. And you guys see those numbers? Numbers popping up? Okay? Those numbers are popping up. Just letting us know one of those phases at least is energized. We have a, let me put this down too. Okay. We're going to this pad mount here. We're going to go ahead and look at some capacitive test points. The three-phase pad mount here, one of those phases is energized. If you don't have capacitive test points, or maybe you have the dust covers on, go to the base of the elbow and it'll still sniff out the semicon material. Go to the base and you can tell it's energized for sure. Okay? It's really nice. But what we do is we always make our tools direct contact. Bierer does not make non-contact tools, and the reason why we don't is because they're not safe. And we will not sell tools non-contact, ever. There's a lot of manufacturers that have non-contact tools, and the reason why they make them is because, fill the purse, we refuse. We want our customers, our linemen out in the field, we want our customers to know that they know for sure what is on the conductor they touch. Every time. There is no guessing at all, ever. All right? So direct contact. We're going to go to URD, and we're going to touch that capacitive test point. And you can see, it says about 1,500 volts. Like I said, direct contact. It's not accurate under 1,000 volts, but that is energized. That elbow, there's nominal power behind that. Maybe there's some backfeed. It's energized. Period. That's the thing you want to know about. We do have a VD1000T that we're going to give to the training center with Mr. Dwight right here. This is for capacitive test points. We do have a VD1000X, and we're going to give this to the training center, Mr. Dwight. And this here is for secondary voltages, up to 1,000 volts. Very accurate wireless for all your secondaries. You'll have it in your training facility in just a week or so, okay? And it's very accurate, obviously, for all your primary, both of them. That's a South Carolina word, both of them, okay? And it's one word, it's not two, both of them. All right, Nathan, you're gonna learn a lot at school today, okay? Okay. All right. So now we're going to go to this overhead line, and what you want to do is you always want to use the proper accessory. Don't just use the cone tip of anybody's tools. And the reason why you want to use the proper accessory is because if you take a shortcut and don't use the proper accessory, the opportunity to bypass those resistors, maybe you're on an extendo stick, maybe it's dark outside, foggy outside, maybe in Ohio you got snow. Okay, we don't get snow in South Carolina, but maybe here you do. Your depth perception won't be as accurate, as acute. So you got to always use the proper accessory. Not only that, but it's safer. If I go on this overhead line happens to resemble some hot bushings. All right, so I'm going to use a bushing adapter on this overhead line because it looks like hot bushings to me. Because we know it's energized, we just checked it with the proximity, so we know one of those is, at least one of that three-phase line is energized. Now, I was at one of your cooperatives the other day, okay? I couldn't believe this. This is freaky scary. And they had a meter, it wasn't ours, they had, obviously, and they had a meter that they would go into the hot bushing, and they had a probe, a big old heavy duty thick probe that they would put on the end of the tool that would be the same size as the hot bushing interface, and a probe, and they would stick that metal into that primary power. No protection here. We don't recommend that. We make a bushing adapter, and you can see it's surrounded for your protection. Okay, cover up. You guys know what cover up does? Cover up is really important. A lot of guys, they may have some cover up in their trucks or line hose in their truck, and they don't want to use as much. They don't want to cover up the cutout. They get smoked. Cover up. Okay, that's what that is. Okay, let's use that. Let's go to the overhead line. Make direct contact. URD. URD, this overhead line is pretty close to the ground plane, so we'll just keep it in URD. Okay, y'all see that? Can you see that, Tim? Okay. So about 21,000 volts, that's 19,934.5, so it's pretty accurate tool. Pretty accurate. Y'all have any questions yet? Y'all pretty quiet. That food starting to make you tired? Huh? All that sugar high. Man, I drank that iced tea, I about passed out, my heart almost stopped. I thought only the Southerners had sweet tea. Man, there was so much sugar in that I had to chew the sweet tea. Okay? All right, so we got 21,000 volts. Whenever you use your tool, use it correctly. We're going to talk about proper body position. Here's a corner pole. This corner pole, a guy called me from Northern Illinois, a cooperative in Northern Illinois, lead lineman about 5 years ago, and he said his analog was broken, lead lineman. So now think about this, a lead lineman. So he's the shepherd of the sheep. He's supposed to be the leader of the band, right? He's the leader of the band. And he says he's using got a corner pole. He's using his analog, Bierer meters, and he said, man, we love your tools, but now they're no good, they broke, and we got them calibrated and not working properly. I'm getting 13,000 volts on 7,200. So I didn't want to argue with the lead lineman. You can't do that. It's important to always never argue with folks. Like we heard about Mr. Brandon seeing the guys wrestling on the ground, okay? You've got to train them why. You can't just draw a dry erase board and say, well, this is the knowledge. But okay, you share knowledge, but where's the understanding? Looking at a dry erase board, that can't work no more. They got to be hands-on training. Dry erase board, that's good, that's knowledge. Got a book, read the book, all right, but let's take it to another step. Let's train and teach the understanding, and that's where you're going to get equal safety. You can't just train knowledge and never train understanding on a particular subject matter, and if that's what you're doing, you've got to stop. Just stop it, that's okay. And then go to the next step. If an apprentice out in the field is questioning the tailboard, and why are we doing it this way? I don't understand. They may have a better idea. You don't know. They could have gifts inside of them that you're unaware of. And just because they're apprentice, you've got to listen to them. You've got to listen to each other. All right? That's so important. So I fly out there and give him training. He gets up in the bucket truck with the broke tool, and he gets back on his stick, and he makes contact with the conductor, and his tool's telling him that he has 7,400 volts. So what happened, he got out, the lead lineman got out of the bucket truck, and he proceeded to tell me the story that I already knew was happening. I already knew the image of his story when he called. I didn't even ask him. And what he was doing is, he had his back to the enemy. Whenever you're working hot, you don't want to ever work, if at all possible, with your back to the enemy. Those conductors that you guys get paid good money to restore and work on, when you're out working hot, they're your enemy. You're actually working with your enemy. And your enemy that feeds you, that enemy, if you give it any opportunity to go home, right here, back to ground, it will go home without a doubt, because that's your electrical reality. So he had his back to the enemy, and he was short sticking. Improper body position. There was no line hose. He had his back to the enemy, and he was short sticking, improper body position. And what was happening is he was coupling with the capacitance with his body, and that energized source was flowing through his body, unawares, across his gloves, unawares, through the tool the opposite direction to the conductor in relation to the ground plane. And the conductor he was touching, that capacitance was flowing, that current was flowing through the tool the proper direction. And he was phase to phase, out of phase, about 13,000 volts. Is that correct? That correct number? About 13,000 volts, right? All right, you see how this works? Another guy called me and he said, hey, I got your horn and light, and your horn and light's giving me a false positive. See what happens when it gets windy? Your horn and light gives me a false positive. He said, the switch is open. And I'm checking with the horn and light, and it's going off. The horn's going off, the light's going off. And I asked him, I said, okay. I said, did you do, and this is important for you guys to remember, did you do a battery test? Yes. I said, did you check your tool on a live known voltage source prior to using your tool? No, we don't do that in our utility. We never been trained that. Oh, okay, so how do you know your tool's broken? You never tested on a live known voltage source, okay? So I said, I want you to test it on a live known voltage source, and he did, and the tool worked perfectly. And I said, okay, get back and let's do a video and show me what's going on. He showed me the cutout. Cutout was open, clearly, got a visual open air gap clearly. He's in the bucket truck, he's at a corner pole. This was in Louisiana. Sometimes you get bad gumbo there, so be careful. Make sure the oysters are fresh too, okay? He was in the bucket truck, and here he is, short sticking and a back to the enemy. And the horn and light was going off on that conductor. The cutout was open. So question to you all, the tool said it was energized. The cutout was open. Was that conductor energized? Yes or no? Was it? Was the conductor energized? The tool said it was. Was it a false positive as he claimed? Anybody? A wild guess? It's not bad to say something. Okay? What's that?
No, it was picking it up through the enemy.
Through the enemy. So you're correct and not correct. So in other words, the tool was going off, so the tool was telling the truth. It was energized, but you're correct. It was flowing through him, across his body, across his gloves, through the tool the opposite direction, the capacitance. So the tool actually was telling the truth because he had improper body position. Okay, you guys get that? Because that's your electrical reality. That stuff, when you guys are working hot, and if you guys, you talk about MAD, minimum approach distances, but even if you are out of the MAD, even if you're working safely, your body still couples with capacitance. It does, to some measurable degree. And if you have improper body position, all right, that takes it to another level that MAD doesn't cover. And he was coupling with capacitance. His body was energized, and that conductor was energized through his body. The tool was telling the truth. And when I told him about improper body position, and what he did is he got in that bucket, he moved his body from Here, tool stays in the same place. Watch what happens, okay? I won't move the tool, but I have to get on the other side. To here, look at the distance. Now I'm facing the enemy, and I'm back on my stick. This is way safer, and he got accurate information that he was gathering, and the tool said de-energized, because it was. I haven't heard from him since. Okay, he's getting fresh oysters from now on, he said. All right, so those are important. All right, real quick, we're gonna go back here, and we are energized on this overhead line. All right, and what we got here is, we're gonna talk about OSHA again. This is where they need to be changed. But what's cool is that you all, Ohio's electric cooperatives, you all can take the foundation, the baseline, and build your house, your walls, and your roof of safety, so that all your linemen, when they come to work with your cooperatives, they dwell in the house of safety. Okay, it's not good enough just to have the foundation poured ready to frame up. It's not good enough. There's more that we need to learn. There's more that we need to do to protect our linemen than just the foundation, okay? And then what we're gonna do is, in lowercase n, it talks about in number 5, your TPGs, your best friend, it talks about using your tester to verify an absence of your nominal voltage, correct? Is that what it says? Yep. All right, but you all need to step it up. And in your training, you're gonna train your linemen that you're gonna use your tester, and the tester is gonna be accurate enough, and non-contact won't cover this all the time. Your tester is gonna be accurate enough to where it's gonna verify an absence of not only the system voltage, but also an absence of backfeed and induction. All three, every time, every job, every conductor. And that's a lot safer, all right? A lot safer. And that needs to be added in the OSHA regs, okay? And I think one day we're gonna get it, we work together and we're gonna get it to happen, okay? Instead of having the foundation of safety, we're gonna build a house that we can dwell in of safety, and we can all go home and be happy, okay? Happy is nicer than not being happy, and it's a lot better than being all sad and grieving because we didn't do enough. Okay, because we had a culture that needs to change. And it does, because that poem that was written is still true today. So that tells you we need to change our culture, okay? All right, so open test ground, how we like to train it in our lineman safety and tool training is we're not gonna do open test ground. Well, how we're gonna train it is we're gonna do test, open, test, test the tester, ground. 5 steps. Takes a little longer, but you get a lot more information. You're a lot safer. Okay, so let's do that. So we test, right? And when we test, what we do is every time we test with our tester, we're verifying that not only are we energized, we figured we were, but you're using your tester on a live known voltage source to make sure it's working properly. And every time you use it on a live known voltage source, you're also confirming if the tool's working not only properly, but is it calibrated? Does it need to be calibrated? We recommend once a year, but if I'm using that tool for 20 years and it's accurate for 20 years, it's calibrated. I don't need to take it back and spend money, get it calibrated. No reason to, because it's calibrated. Okay? All right, so we test. Tester says it's calibrated, tester says we're energized, and then we get together, we talk, and we're engaging, and we confirm that we got each other's back. This is when we start talking, we got each other's back. You did the tailboard, but now we got to confirm we got each other's back. I'm going to be mutually accountable to you, all right? And you're going to be mutually accountable to me at this job site. Every job site, you do 3 different jobs a day, you do it every time, you confirm every single day. If you don't like each other, it doesn't matter, okay? If you think the guy has bad breath, BO, all right, maybe give him a little lesson on hygiene, but you still got to work together, and you still got to confirm, okay, that you got each other's back. Always, always confirm you got each other's back. So we test, and now we're going to open. We open, and then we test. Okay, that's third step. We test. Now what we're going to do is we're going to test the tester on a live known voltage source. We have a 3 kV power supply, and we have a new handheld power supply. You can test the tester, and to verify if the tester is working, make sure it's working. Okay? See that, Tim? Got it? Okay? Test the tester. That's your 4th step. If you're at working an outage, maybe you're working storm and you don't have a live known voltage source. Boom. Right here. Always test the tester. Always. Make sure you test the tester. All right? Now we're going to go ahead and ground. You guys get that? Any questions? Good so far? Okay. Now what we're going to do is talk about another issue that happens from time to time that linemen don't understand. They never were trained. So if we're using our tool and we're using it in a tight vault, maybe there's another hot phase nearby and it's going to be close to the meter head, concentric, some static wire, something that's going to be close to the meter head. What we want to do is we want to use a 0 ohm extension. This is one of our safety training videos on YouTube. 0 ohm extension is arc flash prevention. Okay? That's kind of cool. I came up with that.
Does that recognize the extension?
Nope. 0 ohm. Doesn't even know it's there. But what the 0 ohm extension does is it causes that scenario, that arc flash possibility. It mitigates it completely. So here's a tight vault, maybe a cabinet wall. Here's a bleed wire. I'm in a substation. Here's a hot phase here. Here's a hot bus here. I put a 0 ohm extension on it, and I go from this scenario, boom, to this. I will not see an arc flash. Pretty cool. Real simple. A lot of utilities, what they're doing now, and it's neat to see, seriously. They're changing their work methods all across the country, and it makes me feel good. Anyways, these 2 things, the 0 ohm and handheld power supply, these are getting into work methods, and it's awesome. And then I don't hear no more calls about a scenario that took place, a near miss. I don't hear no more calls. It disappears. Okay, it's so cool. All right, here we go. Now we're going to use the 0 ohm extension. Let's look at our energized source once more, this overhead line. You all see the numbers? So now what we have here, the numbers are a little lower, right? It's almost true RMS voltage. Before it was about 21,000. Now we're right about 19,900, 20,000 volts, which is exactly where it is. Look how accurate it is. So now with the 0 ohm extension, think about remember how the tools work, right? Z. Now with the 0 ohm extension, this proves that you get more safety, correct? Does it not? More safety and more accurate information gathered. Is that true? See, we're going to prove your electrical reality. We're not going to just talk about theory, and that's your reality. 2 linemen came up to me and said there was an arc flash incident. And in that arc flash incident, what happened is they were working a cabinet, and the cabinet was loose from its foundation. They were working the elbows, and they knew the elbows were hot. They knew that. It was not a secret. One guy was working elbows. He's back on his hot stick. What do I got? My air dielectric. I'm pretty safe. This is safe. He's working the elbows. He's got air dielectric. The other lineman saw that the cabinet was loose. They both saw the cabinet was loose. He's having a little trouble with the hot stick. And so what he did is, just remember, you need a good foundation in your life. Don't want to have a loose foundation, okay? Things are going to happen. Anyways, he went over to the cabinet, the other guy, with his gloved hand. And when he went with his gloved hand to that cabinet to steady it, he got arc flashed. It was a very wet, it was a very hot he was soaked with water. Okay, it wasn't a dry, beautiful day like it is today here. If he was dry, that red line that he crossed may not have been crossed. But environmental conditions are important to be a part of your job brief. Always. If everybody's going to be out there sweating, things change. Your electrical reality changes. And it's got to be noted. Okay, so that mad is going to be matter. Okay, get that? Because those electrons that are loosely held are going to be more excited. Okay, because they start seeing your wet body a lot better now than on a dry, beautiful day like today. So they're going to be more excited, and they're going to think they're going to go home more than they would if it was a dry, beautiful day. So let's discuss it on our job briefing. Okay, let's talk about it. Things are changing. Okay, and he got arc flash. He spent some time in the hospital. He didn't lose any body parts or anything. All right, he's fine. But here's the deal. In the incident report, they wrote up that the reason why he got arc flashed is because there was rat piss in the cables. I told those linemen that told me that scenario that that's a escape rat. Okay, that's a escape rat. And here's what happens when we have these ridiculous reports, these write-ups after an incident that are so ridiculous. What happens is everybody gets off the hook except the rats. The rats are blamed. So no safety guy, everybody's fine. Nobody learns nothing. We don't talk about the incident. Why talk about it? Because the rats peed in there. So we don't need to talk about it. So we sweep it under the rug, give the guy some money, his family a little bit of money for missing some work, and we don't learn nothing about our electrical reality at all. No one learns nothing. And a lot of the things that are happening out there, that's exactly what happens, is an incident happens and we really don't learn nothing because we don't want to talk about it. We don't want to talk about it. So guys, now you guys see those numbers? You guys see those numbers? What are they doing? They going up? They are. They're going up. And the reason why they're going up is because you know your electrical reality. I've got cover up, right? I've got a dielectric on my hands, so my hands are protected. I got some PPE on, but my body, which I'm borrowing for a short time, which is not me, your body has nothing to do with who you are as a person. Did you all know that? Has nothing to do with you as a person, your body. It's just a tint. And your body goes back to there, dirt and water, where it came from. Not you, but your body does. Okay? So when I get close, I think I'm safe. That guy with his gloves on the cabinet, he thought these were a best friend. The guy in the stick, he had his best friend, the air dielectric, but the guy with his gloves, he had a good friend. And sometimes a good friend can let you down. And he got arc flashed because he wasn't aware of his electrical reality. Huh? He didn't know the electrons got all excited and happy as he approached that cabinet. And they did, because they do. All right? Mr. Zach, you ready? We're going to have Mr. Zach read voltage on my body. How much time do I have, Mr. Dwight?
You have 32 minutes, sir.
Yes. Okay, thank you. All right, so go ahead to 2 kV. So Zach's going to use our PD25. You guys have one in your training facility, all right? The PD25 is a great tool. It's plus or minus 1% true RMS. Very accurate. It starts working at 1 volt. It's very sensitive. It looks at AC and DC voltage. It works on both. The cord here, we're the only manufacturer that builds a cord within a cord. No other manufacturer in the world does this. Why? Because it costs money. We can afford it because we don't have to put money in other people's pockets called stockholders, because we're family. So we do this. Walter wants to build the safest tool possible, and he does. That's one of his patents. You can use it to phase with, you can look at voltage with, you can DC ID cable with it, you can de-energize capacitors, you can high pot with it, you can test lightning arresters with it, you can find your leading phase out in the field with it. This is a multimeter. It's very useful, okay? All right, you ready? 2 kV. So what I'm gonna do is, I'm gonna work safe because Ohio's electric cooperatives, they teach me to keep my air dielectric. So I'm keeping my air dielectric. So if you could, Mr. Zach, if you could read the voltage on my boot, okay? Now these boots aren't hot boots you guys use, okay? But I'm gonna put hot boots on in a little bit and you'll see something that's pretty freaky with hot boots. Hot or not, okay? You ready? All right, so if you could stand in the middle so Mr. Tim, so you could zoom in on that number. The other end of the cable is going to ground, the trailer. So that's our ground. Okay, good question, thank you. Okay, all right, you ready? Let's give Tim a minute to zoom in. So I'm back, I'm 36 inches back. You go to the top. There you go. And Tim, can you see that? Nice. Okay, go ahead and tell him, Zach.
10, 11 volts.
You all hear that back there? They didn't hear that.
10, 11 volts.
I don't think they can hear that. I think it's about 10 volts. Okay. All right, Zach, the back. Above the belt, though. 16. So 16 volts. All right. Go ahead. Go in this tunnel and go to that inside glove. 26 volts. Okay. So voltage is on my boot, voltage is on my body, through my body, voltage is flowing across these gloves, all right? And I'm working safe. So whenever your linemen work safe, they keep their minimum approach distance. They're a little further, maybe it's wet, you got some different, maybe it's misty outside, so you got a lot of electrons that are a little happier than normal minimum approach distance scenarios. So you're gonna add to that number maybe a little bit. That's okay, you can do that. But you see those electrons on a day like today are pretty excited. Still, even though I'm safe, I'm being energized, literally. And that's what you guys, when you guys are working hot, you're being energized at your job, literally. That's just how electricity works. Walk underneath the transmission line with Fido, all right? After a rainstorm, go ahead. And you hear the sounds and you may feel a little zap once in a while. You know, like you're doing your step potential crap, you start to walk away and you might feel a little tingle, right? And it might not because you're getting married, okay? And you feel that little tingle, okay? But I don't work at Ohio's electric cooperatives and no one's ever told me about keeping my air dielectric. No one ever told me about my supposed best friend that I don't have, okay? And so I'm gonna be short stick. And short stick's a horrible nickname to have if you're a lineman. Okay? Or if you're about to get married. Okay, here we go. Same spots. 25. 40. Inside glove, buddy.
63.
Okay? Now, let me ask you all a question. I don't have my air dielectric. Were the numbers higher? Okay, the equation is x plus y plus me, and I don't get safety. Short sticking has never been safe, folks. Never been safe. Now I'm going to be tool glover. That's even a worse nickname to have. Walking around town, everybody's calling, there's tool glover. Okay, here we go. Okay, same spots.
73. 121.
Inside glove. There you go.
160.
All right? Tool gloving has never been safe, and it never will be safe in this industry. All right? So now I'm going to go with those hot boots. I got some overshoes. All right, you ready? Okay, bud. I'm just going to go straight because of time. I'm going to go straight to short stick. Ready? On the rubber.
Oh, okay.
On the rubber. Make sure Mr. Tim can see. Can you see that, Tim? You see it?
Time's out.
Timed out? Okay. Off and back. Okay, ready? Okay. What you get?
68.
Is-
72.
Is that similar? Similar, huh? Back.
145.
Okay, come on. Inside glove. Instinct, brother. Here we go.
215.
215. That's with overshoes on. And see, what happens is we have all the PPE on. We've got line hose. We got line hose in the truck. We got cover up. We got gloves. And what happens is when we start using these things that we think, and they do, they make us safer, but we think that it keeps us, we're invincible and we're never going to get electrocuted. It'll never happen to us, not today. You see what happens? And then we get a little careless. We get a little, we get a little prideful, or we get a little not paying attention. And then boom, something happens. We're not watching out for each other because, you know, we didn't understand our electrical reality either. Neither did the guy that got hit. But we know how this works. You guys are being energized. Always know that. Even when you're as safe as you can be, always know that. All right, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna do some phasing. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna go come to this pad mount house, the left pad mount house. Me and Zach. Just pretend Zach's here with me. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna go ahead and go face the ground on both of the capacitive points. And the reason why we're going to phase the ground of both capacitive test points prior to phasing is we want to make sure that the phases are energized, correct? Obviously, before we phase. We also want to make sure every time that the tool's working properly on a live known voltage source. Every time. We also want to make sure that Tim and I are talking to each other right now at this left pad mount house, and we're verifying that we got each other's back. Every job site. Remember, we did over here, now we're doing it here. Do you have my back, Mr. Zach? Yeah, man. And then he'll ask me the question, we talk about it. I got your back. And we gotta talk about it, and the reason why is because that changes your consciousness. That changes the way you're thinking. You might have been thinking about your debt. You might have been thinking about the fight you had with your wife, or how you don't like somebody in your crew. But you got to talk about these things. And what happens is that brings you back to your lineman reality, your lineman oath, and your lineman covenant. Every job site. And yeah, we got each other's back. Me and Zach confirmed that. Okay? We're going to go phase the ground. See that, Tim? 175. Okay, can't see it? Man. Okay. Okay, I go to the other elbow on the other side of the cabinet. 225. So about 50 volts difference. So Zach's gonna be here. I'm gonna go to the other side of the cabinet. This cord, remember, is shielded. It's shielded at 35,000 volts. So this cord can lay on the ground, lay on the cabinet. While we're phasing, it's okay, it's safe. All right, so what we're gonna do is, we're gonna phase. I'll go to the other side of the cabinet. Zach's my right-hand man, he's got my right hand. And we get 45. Can you see that, Tim? 45. So that's close to 50. So we know that if you take the difference of the two phase to ground readings, that's the difference. Take the difference, subtract it, and you get close to 0, we're in phase. Otherwise, we'd be seeing numbers close to 400. See how that works? It's very accurate. Okay? I got 15 minutes, Dwight? 15? Yeah. Serious? Yeah. Okay. Yeah, 17? Okay. All right. So we got the secondary panel, and you guys have this tool in your training facility. We got a secondary panel, And Mr. Zach's gonna be on the center phase. He's my right-hand man. And then we got 118, close to 120. So there's 118. Here we go. 1 volt in phase. We got a little bleed in the cord. All right, 1 volt. 206, out of phase. Y'all see that? Okay, real quick, got 17 minutes. We got to blow through this. So I'm gonna phase this overhead line. And what I want to do is I got to change the accessory on the cone tip. Okay? And whenever you make an accessory change, whenever you make a tool change, whenever you make a equipment change, what we want to do every single time we want to change, all right, is we're going to leave, because remember our electric reality, we're going to get away from those electrons. Because here, I'm being fed with electrons. We're going to move it. And what happens if I fall? What if I got a rock or some wet grass? What happens if I fall this direction, 6 feet away? I'm 6 feet tall. What if? And as I'm falling, I flail my arms trying to get my balance. So now we add 4 feet. Now I can play basketball. Okay? So we're going to make a change right here, away from that energized source. So real quick, I won't do any wireless phasing, but you're going to have wireless phasers at your training facility, and you guys could do it on your own. I don't have time. Typically this lasts 2.5 hours. We only got 2 hours, so we got to skip some stuff. And don't forget hats, okay? Don't forget the ECOS. Get involved with ECOS because that's free for you all. And they're the best speakers, best safety folks, consultants in the United States doing this, okay? So get involved. So what I'm going to do is go to ground. We're going to phase this overhead line. I take the tool. I'm going to go to 25 kV because this is high voltage. It's not the 1 volt to 2,000 volts anymore, secondary. And the cable is a little longer than I need. And I got to mitigate the magnetic field. So I don't want my cable to have any coils in it. Remember the TPG test? Remember that? Same principle with your corded tools. Same principle. Okay, so I'm going to go to ground, or phase the ground, go hot, about 20,000 volts. Now you see how accurate the wireless was. Pretty accurate tool. Now I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to go to the other side of the cabinet. And we've got about 0.3 because there's a little bleed on that cord. If you were here, you could hear the buzzing. It's pretty exciting. Like I said, I haven't been home for a few days. Okay? There's a 0.5 milliamp of current that flows through that cord. And that's it. It's very safe. You could actually touch it, but it's part of the tool. So remember the 36 inches? That's part of the tool. You need to try to stay 36 inches away from your cords when you're using them. When you're phasing and you're in the bucket truck, you don't want the cord next to your hip in the bucket with you. Please, always remember this. This is true story because it's part of the tool. Keep your air dielectric. Whenever you're phasing or high potting, always take the secondary probe to ground first. Always. That's the sequence. You don't have to, but Ohio's Electric Cooperatives does because you guys know your electrical reality. And when you pull the meter head off, you want the tool to tell you it's de-energized. Let the tool speak for you. Learn from the tool. They're very smart. And you guys are geniuses. Okay? Let's go to ground. Okay? And now I'm going to pull off. And if some of you notice, it takes about 2 seconds to de-energize the tool. And the reason why, and you know, is because the resistors slow it down a little bit. They resist the flow, okay? Okay, so it'll take about 2 seconds. About 2 seconds right there, maybe a second and a half, all right? All right, any questions thus far? We're gonna de-energize and finish it up. Do I have about, what, 8 minutes? All right, we're de-energized. Any questions thus far? That is a good question. One thing is a visual, obviously. If you start getting nicks in your cord, you don't want that. I don't know the answer for that. Yeah, as long as your tool's working properly. So if you're using it, say high potting or look at voltage, and you get some funky readings, then it's time to inspect. It's time to see why, to understand why. If that cord has some nicks in it, we want to go ahead and replace it, okay? And that should fix anything. So inspect your cords. Those little chintzy cords that you get on most tools, man, those things, one, they're usually rolled up. Think about it. You're using them you're phasing and they're usually rolled up. That makes sense. Think about it. If you know how electricity works, that doesn't make any sense. But that's how they are. Okay, so what we want to talk about is we're going to talk about some psychological safety, all right? So years ago, and this is good as far as supervisors, I'm driving down the street and I see the sign that says distractive driving targeting safety corridor. Have you guys seen that sign? One is, why are we being targeted? Why, if we're doing line work together, we don't target one another. And a lot of safety folks, they go into it and they're tyrants because they try to target. That's not a good culture. That's pushing everybody away from each other and it's making it worse. And then there's an incident. You see? We don't want to be targeting anybody, okay? Except maybe Harrison is his coming up wife. That's a good thing. That's a good target, okay? But what we want to do is we want to establish a good safety culture. And Timothy R. Clark wrote a book several years ago, and it's called The 4 Steps of Psychological Safety. 4 steps. And I recommend reading it. But anyways, in a nutshell, here's what he talks about. And I got a really cool, if you go on YouTube, he's got a really cool video. It's like 2.5 minutes long that he goes through what he's trying to explain, and he does such a good job. But anyways, here are the 4 steps of psychological safety. And these are very important that you all live these steps, okay? And the first step is, it's got to be safe to be included, all right? So I'm from South Carolina. I don't have a weird accent because I lived in Arizona most of my life, yet it's starting to get different. But I'm from South Carolina, so I'm a Southern folk coming up with a bunch of Yankees, okay? But you guys, maybe I talk funny, all right? Maybe I look kind of strange. Maybe I say things that you're not happy with. Maybe I come from a background playing video games most of my life, and I realized that video games are fake news, and it's just draining my brain. It's not even reality. And I don't want to do that no more. I want to get calluses. I want to work outside, get some vitamin D from that right there. And I want to stop. I want to do line work. I never dug a post hole. I never worked on a farm, but I want to do it. I really want to do it, okay? And you all need to make it safe for me to be included. Y'all get that? It has to be safe to be included. I ask stupid questions, it doesn't matter. I want to know why. Teach me why without being angry with me. If I ask you 2 or 3 times, man, that shouldn't bother you at all, because there's probably other folks that are too afraid to speak up that they need to learn too, and they're actually happy that I am. So we need to be included, all right? That's step 1. Step 2, it's got to be safe to learn, all right? So when I was born, my mama dropped me, she hatched me, and my mama dropped me on my head. When I was born, the doctor had the catcher's mitt, and he missed. So I'm a little slow. It takes me longer to learn than it does some of you guys from Ohio, okay? I grew up in LA breathing smog, and I'm just all messed up. My head's all messed up, so I'm just slow, but I want to learn. You guys got to make it safe for me to learn. Y'all get that? You got to make it safe for me to learn. All right? That's so important. That's step 2. Step 3, it's got to be safe for me to speak up. If we're at a job site and you guys allow a 2-minute walkabout, we get to walk around for a couple minutes looking at hazards, you know, looking at things. There's some ice. We're in Ohio. There's some ice, there's some snow. Oh, there's a little divot right there. We got to be careful. There's some traffic. We come back and we talk about things, right? And it's got to be safe for me. You guys are getting the tailboard. We're going to talk about it and make the plan, the game plan, and how we're going to commence and how we're going to execute this job. You guys got to make it safe for me to speak up. Because I was playing video games and not working on the farm, I might have gifts that you all never thought about. I might see details that you guys never saw before. And my idea could be better. It might be different, but you guys, when you hear my idea, you got to act interested, even if you don't like it. Act interested in whoever speaks up. And let's listen. All right? Let's talk about it. So you guys got to make it safe for everybody to speak up. That's step 3. Step 4 is it's got to be safe to come against the status quo. We've been doing it for this long. We've been doing it this way for all these years. Okay? But why do we have a close call? Because you keep doing it the same way. Maybe it's okay for us to talk to each other. Maybe it's okay for us to reevaluate a scenario. Maybe it's okay for us to change the status quo. And let's talk about it. It's okay. You get a new CEO, okay? Maybe it's better. Let's all work together. CEO, you got a ground lady, okay? Down at one of the shops here, you got a ground lady. Mr. Dwight, all he is a coach, a safety coach. We all are about safety equally on this team. All of us. You've got the supervisors, the apprentice, the safety coach, the CEO. We're all equal when it comes to safety. That's a true safety culture right there. All right? Any questions at all? Come get your hat. Okay? That's all. Thank you.